If you've seen Dune, or even heard of the books or the movies, you would know Paul Atreides, the kid who becomes emperor, the reluctant messiah who ends up leading a holy war that kills billions. And watching his story, something kept nagging at me. The way the corrupt system backs him into a corner, the way his justified anger turns into absolute power, the way it all ends in catastrophe. There's even viral shorts debating whether Paul is actually the villain of the series. And that question, that's exactly what makes this story so interesting. Because I've seen this before, 2,000 years ago, in Rome. Same corrupt system, same impossible choice, same catastrophic ending. And when you see who I'm talking about, the parallel becomes impossible to ignore. So here's the question. Is this just a coincidence? Or is there a pattern here? A pattern in how corrupt systems create the very thing they fear most. Walk with me through Paul's story first. Then I'll show you the Roman leader who lived this exact nightmare. Paul Atreides starts out as this earnest kid, the heir to a noble house. His father, Duke Leto, is legitimately one of the good ones. A leader who actually cares about his people in a galaxy full of corrupt aristocrats. And then the system just destroys him. The Emperor conspires with the Harkonnens, these brutal, sadistic rulers, and they wipe out House Atreides. They murder Paul's father. Paul becomes a refugee, hunted across this desert planet that should have been his grave. Now his cause is righteous. The anger he feels? Completely justified. Anyone would want revenge. He ends up with the Fremen, these desert people who've been exploited by the Empire for generations. And here's where things get interesting. The Bene Gesserit, this secretive sisterhood, they've been manipulating Fremen religion for centuries, planting prophecies, setting up this Messiah narrative. They didn't predict a savior, they engineered the cultural conditions to create one. Paul fits the prophecy perfectly. And every time he does something extraordinary, which he can, he's got these abilities, it just reinforces their belief that he's the one they've been waiting for. He falls in love with Chani, this Fremen woman who sees him as just Paul, not as some prophesied figure. She's basically the only person who wants him to stay human. But the Harkonnens keep escalating. The violence gets worse. And Paul's faced with this impossible choice. Stay small, stay Paul, and watch everyone he loves get slaughtered. Or become Muad'Dib, become the Messiah, and at least give them a fighting chance. And by the way, if you're wondering why the Harkonnens are so brutal, why this whole war exists, it's all about spice. We did a whole video breaking down the economics of it, how it mirrors real resource conflicts. Links in the description if you want to dive into that. Hit subscribe, because what I'm about to show you, once you see it, you'll start noticing this pattern everywhere. So Paul drinks the water of life, rides the sandworm, becomes everything they believe he is. He defeats the emperor, takes the throne, even betrays Chani by marrying the princess for political power. The hero wins. Justice is served. 61 billion people die in the holy war that follows. That's every person on Earth killed 7 times over. Now here's what was genius about Frank Herbert's work. Every step Paul just took, the corruption, the impossible choice, the righteous anger, the catastrophic victory, this already happened. Julius Caesar, Rome, 1st century BC. And the parallels are striking. Just like Paul, Caesar lived under a completely broken system. The Roman Senate had become a club for the ultra-wealthy. Small farmers were getting crushed by massive slave estates owned by senators. Veterans who'd fought for Rome had their land stolen from them. The urban poor were literally starving while the Senate debated which of their buddies deserved the next expensive victory parade. Caesar sees all this, and when he's commanding legions out in Gaul, he doesn't pull the typical aristocrat move. He eats the same food as his soldiers, knows their names, gives them actual dignity, and they love him for it. Because finally someone in power actually sees them as human beings. The Senate knows he's dangerous because he represents everything they're not. So they corner him. They give him this impossible choice. Surrender your army and face a rigged trial that'll definitely end in your death, or cross the Rubicon with your troops and be branded a traitor to Rome. His soldiers basically make the choice for him. Their loyalty to him, their sense that his fight is their fight, there's no way they're abandoning him. So Caesar crosses the Rubicon. He defeats his enemies, becomes dictator. The corrupt Senate gets broken. The people celebrate. Justice wins. But then his own senators assassinate him, thinking that'll somehow restore the Republic. Instead, it triggers decades of civil war. His successors tear the Roman world apart, fighting over his legacy. Cities burned, families destroyed. The republic they were trying to save? Gone forever, replaced by the very imperial dictatorship they feared. You see it? Paul Atreides, Julius Caesar. Same corrupt system creates the same impossible situation, same righteous anger, same catastrophic result. So what's going on here? Why does this keep happening? Frank Herbert actually understood this. He said he wrote Dune because charismatic leaders should come with a warning label. May be dangerous to your health. He was watching it play out in real time. JFK in Vietnam, Jonestown, these messianic movements that kept popping up throughout history. And here's what he realized. Corrupt systems don't accidentally create these charismatic saviors. They're kind of designed to produce them. Think about how it works. The system gets so broken, so impossible to fix through normal channels that people start getting desperate. They start looking for someone strong enough to just clean house. Someone who will break the rules to save everyone. The corrupt system backs good people, and Paul and Caesar were genuinely good people, into corners where grabbing absolute power feels like the only moral option left. And the tragedy? They don't fix the broken system, they make it worse. Paul doesn't liberate the galaxy from corruption. He just gives the empire an excuse to become even more totalitarian. Caesar doesn't save the republic, he shows Rome exactly how to build an empire. The solution ends up being way worse than the original problem. This keeps repeating. Whenever a system fails hard enough, people look for someone to drain the swamp, to break the rules, to save us from the mess. And every time, we tell ourselves it's different. This time, the leader really is good. This time, the system really is that broken. This time, we really don't have another choice. But that's the trap. The corrupt system creates the crisis. Desperate people elevate the savior. The savior becomes the tyrant. And then we're right back where we started, usually worse off. Herbert had a thought on this. He said, beware of heroes. Much better to rely on your own judgment and your own mistakes. The answer isn't finding better heroes. It's building systems that don't need heroes in the first place. Systems where power spreads out instead of concentrating up, where we solve problems together instead of handing everything over to one person to fix. That's harder. That requires everyone to participate, to mess up, to figure it out slowly. But Paul and Caesar took the fast path. They became what their broken systems demanded, and the pattern just kept repeating. Whether Frank Herbert was deliberately modeling Paul on Caesar or just understood how this whole thing works, the parallel is there. And once you see it, you start noticing it all over the place. What do you think? Have you noticed this pattern playing out elsewhere? Drop it in the comments. Subscribe for more of this kind of stuff. Because honestly, once you start seeing these historical patterns, it changes how you look at everything.